There is a version of World War II history that says France lost because it had no air power, that its aircraft were obsolete, that its pilots were outmatched, that when Germany attacked in 1940, the sky already belonged to the Luftwaffe. That story is simple, it's convenient, and it's incomplete. France entered World War II with one of the largest air forces in Europe. It fielded modern fighters, capable bombers, long-range reconnaissance aircraft, and experimental designs that were still being rushed into service as the war began. French pilots were not inexperienced. French engineers were not behind the curve. In fact, some French aircraft matched, and in certain cases exceeded, their German counterparts in raw performance. So why did French air power collapse so quickly? Before we talk about command failures, coordination breakdowns, or the chaos of 1940, we have to do something more fundamental. We have to look at the aircraft themselves. What France actually built, what it chose to field, and what machines were in the air when the war arrived faster than anyone expected. This is not a story about why France lost. This is not a battle recap. This is a complete visual catalog of the major French aircraft used in World War II, the fighters, bombers, and reconnaissance planes that formed the backbone of French air power when everything was on the line. 1. D.520, France's best fighter. If France had one aircraft that truly symbolized what its aviation industry could achieve, it was the Dewoitine D.520. This was a modern monoplane fighter with excellent handling, strong climb performance, and a powerful armament for its time. Equipped with a 20mm cannon firing through the propeller hub and supplemented by machine guns, the D.520 could engage German fighters on nearly equal terms. In direct combat, French pilots flying the D.520 achieved respectable kill ratios against the Bf 109. The problem was timing. Production ramped up too late. Many units were still transitioning to the aircraft when the German invasion began. Some D.520s went into combat with minimal pilot familiarity. Others never reached operational squadrons at all. The aircraft was good. There simply weren't enough of them, soon enough. 2. Morane-Saulnier MS-406, the backbone fighter. The Morane-Saulnier MS-406 was the most numerous French fighter at the outbreak of war. By 1939 standards, it was already aging. It lacked the speed and firepower of newer designs, but it was stable, maneuverable, and familiar to pilots. Many French aces scored their first victories in the MS-406. Its weaknesses became apparent quickly. Against modern German fighters, the MS-406 struggled in speed and climb. It relied on defensive maneuvering rather than dominance. Yet it still formed the backbone of French fighter units because replacements had not arrived in sufficient numbers. This aircraft didn't fail because it was useless. It failed because it was asked to fight a war it was never meant to face alone. 3. Block MB.152, the heavy interceptor. The Block MB.152 was France's attempt to field a rugged, heavily armed interceptor capable of attacking bombers and surviving damage. It carried a powerful combination of cannons and machine guns and was structurally strong. However, it suffered from engine underperformance and reliability issues. On paper, it looked formidable. In practice, it struggled to reach optimal altitude in time to intercept incoming raids. Pilots appreciated its toughness but criticized its sluggishness. In the fast-moving air war of 1940, seconds mattered, and the MB.152 often arrived too late. 4. Block MB.151, the transition design. The MB.151 preceded the MB.152 and shared many of its strengths and weaknesses. It represented a transitional phase in French fighter development, an aircraft caught between old design assumptions and new combat realities. Limited numbers were produced, and many were quickly superseded by the MB.152. It served mainly in secondary roles or with understrength units. The MB.151 story is not one of failure, but of acceleration. It shows how rapidly aircraft development was moving, and how little time France had left. 5. Potes 63, multi-role necessity. The Potes 63 series was designed as a multi-role aircraft, fighter, interceptor, reconnaissance, and command platform. As a heavy fighter, it struggled. As a reconnaissance aircraft, it proved far more valuable. Its twin-engine configuration gave it range and endurance, allowing it to gather intelligence deep behind enemy lines. The Potes 63 didn't dominate the skies, but it filled critical gaps. In a war defined by speed and confusion, information mattered, and this aircraft provided it when little else could. 6. Breguet 693, the attack aircraft. The Breguet 693 was one of the most aggressively used French aircraft in 1940. Designed for low-level ground attack, it was fast, well-armed, and flown by brave crews tasked with attacking advancing German columns. These missions were devastating and devastatingly costly. Flying into dense anti-aircraft fire at low altitude, Breguet crews suffered heavy losses. The aircraft itself performed well. The mission profile was nearly suicidal. The Breguet 693 showed that France understood the importance of close air support, but lacked the air superiority to protect it. 7. Leo 451, the modern bomber. The L'Olivier Leo 451 was a modern medium bomber that arrived just as the war began. Fast, sleek, and well-designed, it could outrun many enemy fighters when operating at altitude. Its bomb load and defensive armament were competitive with contemporary bombers. Once again, timing was everything. Too few were operational. Training was incomplete. Coordination with fighter escort was inconsistent. The Leo 451 represented what French bomber aviation was becoming, not what it had time to be. 8. Amiot 143, the Old Guard. The Amiot 143 belonged to an earlier era of aviation. Slow, boxy, and poorly defended, it was obsolete by 1939. Yet it remained in service because newer bombers had not fully replaced it. Crews flew it with determination, despite knowing its limitations. In modern air combat, the Amiot 143 was vulnerable. Its continued use was not a sign of ignorance, it was a sign of shortage. 9. Farman F.222, the strategic bomber. The Farman F.222 was one of France's attempts at strategic bombing. Large and long-ranged, it was used for night bombing missions and propaganda raids. Its impact was limited, but it demonstrated France's understanding of long-range air power. Like many French aircraft, it existed in too small a number to shape the outcome. 10. Potes 25. The Survivor. The Potes 25 was already outdated by World War II standards, yet it continued to serve in reconnaissance, training, and colonial roles. It was rugged, reliable, and adaptable. Not glamorous, not fast, but present, and sometimes presence was all that was available. Transition after 1940. After France fell, French aviation fractured. Some aircraft served under Vichy control. Some were seized and reused by Germany. Others disappeared entirely. Free French forces re-emerged later, flying Allied aircraft, American and British machines bearing French insignia. By 1944, French pilots were back in the sky, but the aircraft were no longer French-built. This was French air power in World War II. Not non-existent, not helpless, not technologically inferior, but incomplete, fragmented, and overtaken by a war that arrived before preparation had caught up with ambition. The aircraft were real. The pilots were real. The capability existed. What failed was not the sky, but the system beneath it.